Alright, so for Module 11, we're not going to be drawing this example. We're going to import it just to show you that. There is a drawing and a model supplied, so the drawing is just there for reference. So what we'll do is we'll click the model. It'll automatically download. It already did there, but just for an example. And once it's downloaded, we can go into Mastercam, and we can go to Open. And I'm going to go to My Downloads where it is. Step Files is already selected. It's going to default to a Mastercam file, but just go ahead. You can do All Files, or you can go to Step Files. And then I'm going to select this one now. Do not hit open yet. I want you to look at options. Options, there's some important things here with surfaces. Now, with this model being a step file and being this version of Mastercam, we can use a solid. There are times, though, when it's very difficult, and especially in previous versions, to select different portions or different surfaces to machine them separately. If you run an issue where you select, you import a solid and you go to select your first surface and the entire model highlights and you just don't have the control you want, you can import as trimmed surfaces, and that works as well. We're going to stick with solids. The newer versions are pretty friendly with this. We can select attempt to heal solids during import unless in case there is an issue, and then we're going to skip edge curves. I don't think we're going to need them. Edge curves is handy, but we can put them on later as needed. I don't like to have too much geometry. I don't think it's necessary. So those are the settings we're going to use. But again, if you in the future, if you have like an IGES file or a different type of model, and you're just not getting the ability to select surfaces as you want, re-import as trimmed surfaces. That will help. Or you can also take the model and take surfaces out of the model and create surfaces on a different level in Mastercam. Different ways to work with things that you will import. Alright, so I just wanted to show you that. So we'll just do solids. Hit green check and hit open. And you will see our lofted example. Alright, so let's create a bounding box and a stock model. We don't really need a solid reference to stock, but we'll work with it anyway. So what I want to do is create a new level, and this level will just be the bounding box. Okay, and that level is active. We will go to bounding box and select the entire model, hit end selection. Okay, so now what we need to do, just to show you a couple things here, I want to make the stock not 0.932 but 1 inch. You notice it's just the top of the model. So we're going to use this push-pull this time. So I'll select the top of the model and go up, and then I'll just type in 1.0, enter, enter, and you'll see the model is now 1 inch. All right. With this one in particular, if you try typing in 1 inch, it'll split funny. So that's just another way to do it, to work around it. We're going to create lines and arcs. Okay, and we're also going to create a solid. All right, just to reference later. Okay, so we will hit green check, and you'll see the solid. So now what I want to do is click the solid. Okay, and actually what we should do is turn off our existing loft. Click the solid, right click, analyze entity properties. We'll put it on level 3, and then we could rename level 3 stock model. All right, and we turn that off and turn our loft on, and that is where we are for our initial bounding box. What we want to do now is move our work coordinate system to somewhere that would make sense. All right, so what I want to do is go here and go dynamic and select the upper left corner. And then what I need to do is I'm going to spin this thing around. So I'm going to click the red arc here and kick that up -90. And that's good there. It looks good. All right, make sure your set as is correct and hit green check. All right, and that's just called plane. You could rename it, but it's the only additional or new one we created, so that's fine. So now we're pretty much ready to do our tool paths. So what I want to do is go to Machine, Mill, and I'm just going to use default for this one. All right, I'm going to go to Properties. First thing I want to do is go to Levels and turn off the loft, turn my stock model on. Get into stock setup, go to tool settings, watch out for the assign tool numbers sequentially, and then warn of duplicate tool numbers. All right, you can skip the use tools, step, pick, and coolant for now. That's fine. Everything else I'm not going to worry about. We will then go to stock setup. I'll display it. Then I'll hit all solids. All right. The stock plane, we could leave there. That's fine. Then we'll hit green check. All right. So that'll work for this. You have to watch the stock plane. I've had that become an issue with multiple setups like we did in the beginning of the class, but for this one, it's fine. All right. Toolpath group 1 is fine. You could rename it if you want. We can rename it roughing, which is not a bad idea. We'll do that right now. Alright, so that's been renamed. And we'll go back to our levels, turn the stock model off, turn lofting on, and we actually don't even need the bounding box necessarily right now, so you could turn that off. We'll probably need it for some of our containment, but for right now, that's where we'll leave off. Alright, now we're ready to rough this part out. So we'll go over to Toolpaths and we will select OptiRough. Alright, we'll select the surfaces or the entities to machine. So under the machining geometry, we'll hit select entities and select just this top surfaces. So it should select the surfaces properly just like that. Okay, once you do that, hit end selection. And we're going to change the wall stock and floor stock to about 15 thousandths. Right, no avoidance geometry necessary right now. No need for toolpath control. We should be okay. The tool, I have a 3/8 tool loaded in there, so that's what we will use as tool 1. All right, so it's a 3/8 flat ML. I'll turn the radial chip thinning factor on. The feed per tooth is fine. I'll change the surface feed to 800. For now, the comment line will be roughing. All right. And now we're ready to get into the cut parameters. Step over, we're going to, I'm not going to, what you can do here is, especially on this part, you could step all the way down and work your way up. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change the step over to 25% and the step down to 25%. I'm going to turn step up on it. I'm going to turn that to 5% to give me a nice even cut, and I'm going to put mill vertical walls on. Okay, the back feed route will increase to 500 inches per minute, and then we're ready to get into steep shallow. Now we need this for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this blank for now. Okay, I'm going to show you the error that happens and show you how to fix it, but I want to show you the actual error just in case you run into it. So linking parameters, we'll leave full vertical retract on for now. We'll tweak that later. I'm not worried about it. The arc filter, we'll turn line arc filtering on in the XY plane, and the total tolerance will increase to like 3 thousandths. We'll be fine. Okay. We'll kick it 50-50 as well. Everything else should be okay. So right now we'll hit green check and let it regenerate. And it's a new op, so it should be regenerating, just like the last module. If you turn multi-threading on, you'll see it working. So it is working. And we'll let it regenerate, and we'll see what it comes up with. Alright, so there we are. Alright, and you'll see this blank spot here. That's an issue. So let's watch this, and you'll see it's going to leave a big step there, and it's going to be an uneven, it's going to be a taller step than necessary. Well, not even necessary, but taller step for the semi-finish to hit. We don't want that. We want even stairs as much as we possibly can get. So I'll slow this down, and we'll take a look at how this runs. Hit play. Alright, and let it run. And I'll speed it up. So you see the first pass is there, and we'll watch what happens after the step up. Alright. So I'll pause right there. See this big step here? That's our problem. Alright? So we can't have that. Notice these stairs here from the step up are fine, but it does not mill here. Okay? So let's take a look how to fix that. Alright, so let's fix this. Let's go to parameters. And you want to go into steep shallow like I mentioned before. Now, steep shallow controls where the cutting is going to occur, essentially. So let's go to detect limits, and you'll see this is the difference between the 1-inch stock and the 932 height we had when we did our bounding box. So the minimum depth, that's an issue because we want the minimum depth to be, less than that. So we want this to be 0. Okay. So now that these are set, all right, that's the only thing we changed was the steep shallow parameters. So let's hit green check. And let's regenerate it, and let's see the improvement this made, if it made an improvement. I like to try to change one thing at a time, especially when showing somebody something, because then you see exactly what happens when one parameter changes. If we turn steep and shallow on and essentially left the negative value in the minimum, it wouldn't make much of a difference. So since we change that to 0, we'll see that we will get a complete cut on this workpiece. You'll see already that we have tool paths here cutting. So let's take a look at this and verify and see if the toolpath has improved and cuts some, and leaves a nice even staircase on this entire workpiece. All right, see the difference? Now the stairs are starting much sooner in the initial step down because it knows there's material there. Okay, so that's steep and shallow and what that does. All right, we'll finish watching this, so I'll kick it up and see what our results look like. And again, you can increase your step overs and things and then change them before you go to the machine. And like I said before, you can start with you don't really have to work top down. This is not really a dynamic path, although we're sort of using some of the tools with it. I prefer working like this. I think it's smoother, especially if you're doing like one part. It may not be the most efficient for the tool itself, but it's only 13 minutes. We could tweak it from there. We could actually probably increase some step overs and make it pretty fast, but there's two schools of thought on that. So as you'll see, we have nice even stairs, and that's really what I'm after. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's get out of here. And one thing I want to change are these full vertical retracts. So I'm going to go to parameters. All right, we'll go to linking parameters, and we can get in here. And I'm just going to go to let's try minimum distance. Okay, that looks good there. We'll hit green check, and let's see how it comes out. Alright, looks good. One thing I want to make sure there's no issues here, alright, as far as any crashing. So we will verify it again and watch it and make sure there's no weird stuff. And then we'll be ready for semi-finishing. Alright, let play. And I'm looking for, gouges, things like that. Alright, nothing there. One of the big issues you'll have with the retracts, especially, again, if you're having a crash, is, one of the major crashes you have on parts like this is the part, it will not pick up high enough. Let's say going from here to here, and you'll run right through here and things like that. So you got to be kind of wary. So anyway, I don't see anything. It looks about the same. It looks good. We're going to go with that. And when we really scrutinize this later, we'll make sure it makes sense. But that's good for now. So the roughing is pretty much complete. I don't see any issues with the yellow lines of wrapping. I don't see anything going through the workpiece that's really sticking out. So it looks pretty good to me. Alright, so right now we're going to go with that. And you'll see all the big arc moves with the red, and the orange are arc moves, the green are straight lines. That, again, just like the last one, is an advanced display. So to end this here, I'm going to turn this toolpath off visually, and then I will add a new toolpath group, and this will be semi-finish. Right, and then we'll take care of the finished toolpath for this, or the semi-finished toolpath for this workpiece. Alright, let's take a look at semi-finishing this workpiece. What we're going to do is we're going to use what's called a raster style toolpath. That's going to go back and forth and flow with the flow of the workpiece. And we could pick the angle it wants to flow with. It could be 45 degrees, could be this way. So we're going to give that a shot. One thing I want to point out, sometimes you'll see, especially if you look at the previous path here, it's kind of jumping in the middle here. And the reason for that is because you'll see stock left here. Now there's also we are leaving like 15 thousandths. But right here is flush, right in the middle of this workpiece. If you look at the drawing, is flush. I think it's like 50 thousandths, 50. This is like 200 thousandths. The center height of this here, if you look at the lofted geometry, is like 300 thousandths. Don't quote me on that, but it's some difference. So unless we add material here, okay, or you can also extend this out a little bit, it's going to dance over this because technically there's nothing right in the center here. This is a flush surface, and that's what really, that's what exists. So I'm not going to really worry about it for this because we are just, starting out with here. This is very easy to blend at the machine. It all depends on what kind of tolerance you would have to hold here. All right, if you need a straight pass here. Before finishing, you'll see it's going to leave a little red mark here. I'm not going to worry about it because, again, that is an area of the workpiece that's already been machined and established by the width of the workpiece. Okay, so that's what that is. So let's take a look at semi-finish. Let's get into toolpaths, and what I'm going to do is actually copy and paste this to save some time. So we can just literally copy and paste, or just to change it up a little bit, because I think I did that last time. So we'll just select raster, and for our entities, we'll just select this top surface. We're going to leave 3 thou to finish. Okay. Now, toolpath control we're not going to need. Tool, I already have a 3/8 ball end mill, so you can select that. And I want to kick this up a little bit, 800 inches per minute. And the chip load, I want to put like 3 thou, and that'll be fine. So 100 inches a minute will be good. Rapid retract, and the plunge, we'll put at 25. Because we shouldn't be really plunging much. This would be semi-finish. And we are using, obviously, a ball cutter tool, too. So go to cut parameters. Zigzag is good for this. Optimize cut order is fine. I want to have a scallop height of 1/1000ths. Okay. Now, if we want to kick the machining angle, right, it's going to default this way in the workpiece, a long ways. If you want to kick it to 45, 30, totally 90, and cut this way, this is where you do it. Perpendicular fill will fill in areas like it'll try to flow this way as much as possible, then get these areas in a different style toolpath. That would be okay for semi-finishing, not really good for finishing, but I just don't think this part warrants that. Transition, steep, shallow, everything else is good here. Linking parameters, we'll do minimum vertical retract and see what happens. Everything else looks okay. The leads we could increase. I don't think we're going to have a problem on this one, how far to lead in amount. 25 is fine for now. We'll see if we have any issues. Now the arc filter, I'm going to turn both on. I'm going to create arcs. This part has some standard geometry and some weird geometry, so I'm going to turn smoothing on as well. I'm going to split the tolerance on both of these. All right, and make sure total tolerance is about 1 thou and see what goes there. Everything else looks good. I am going to minimize the number of points on this. Try to shorten the program a little bit. And we'll hit green check, and it should regenerate, and let's see what happens. All right, there we are. So there's our semi-finished toolpath. All right, and we can watch both of these run. And again, we could be importing the device and see if we have a crash, but I'm trying to minimize how much information is on your computer and focus on what's at hand, assuming you be able to import a device by now. So we'll take a look at this. I'll kick it all the way up to fast. For the first stop, I'll go to my stop conditions, make sure collision is on, and make sure op change is on, and make sure color loop is on. So we'll hit play and get through the roughing. We'll see what this semi-finished toolpath looks like. You see I have my precision set up a little bit higher, so that's why it's acting a little notchy. But that'll help us avoid the weird transition between the red existing stock and what looks like it's going to be a light blue or light purple semi-finished toolpath. So we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so the roughing toolpath does leave a pretty decent set of stairs. Looks good. Alright, and we'll hit play and get to the semi-finish and see what happens. There we go. And see it gets ahead of itself. There we go. It's pretty good. It is leaving a little bit. That's should be a 1 thou scallop height. That's fine. We could refine that a little bit, but the finish pass should get most of that out of the way. All right, that's only a 1 thou scallop height, so I'm not super worried about that. Alright, so there's semi-finish. Looks good. If this catches up, that should go away. You see it's still thinking. There we go. So that looks good. Looks about the same on both sides. So the semi-finish looks good. That's complete, and we will go ahead and finish that again. Take a look at your tool paths. You got to watch out for your vices here, but don't worry about loading one in for this example. Alright, let's continue on this workpiece. And again, like I said previously, we are always going to have a little bit of red right here. And there's a couple ways to get rid of that. Like I said before, you can extend surfaces. But the best way I have found blending, I never found to be the best way to achieve like this seamless straight line right here. Okay, so I turn this off. The best way to really achieve that seamless straight line would be to machine this wall and this together in one 3D toolpath, right together. Now, obviously, the 3D toolpath is not going to do much there. It's not really 3D. But what happens is it machines it all at the same time, and you have better luck. Now, is that realistic? Do you need to do that? It all depends. Since this wall is vertical and this wall is vertical, that little red line is just saying that there's no material there to 3D machine because it's already gone. If you look at this in the right view, again, you can see how high that wall comes. That material is already not even there. That's why it's not writing code there. All right, don't worry about it for this one. I'm focusing on the 3D machining. Again, that looks a lot worse on Mastercam than it would on the machine, depending how accurately you locate. It may not be the best option for you to locate in the upper left corner. Let's say that you're not really worried about the left and right. That's just out there, but you're really worried about this transition. Maybe you want to pick up the center. All right, sweep an indicator, pick up the center to make sure you're on center of the existing stock. The other thing you want to do is make sure that if you have a bunch of these to do, that the width right here is identical for each workpiece. Otherwise, you're going to have weird things occurring here where it's not machining. Again, the way to avoid that would be to machine the entire setup right around, but sometimes that's not necessary. It's more time. It may not even matter. So just make sure you take that into account and don't stress about this little red here, because again, there's technically that material is already gone. All right, so let's do a new toolpath group. And this will be finishing. And I am going to copy and paste the semi-finish because we're going to use that essentially. I want to double check in here and make sure we're using 3/8 ball mill. We're going to change the cutter. Everything looks good. Cut parameters 1000 scallop height. Perfect. So what I want to do is I'm going to bring that down. I am going to regenerate this now quickly while I'm at it. Then we'll treat the finishing separately. So I will we'll take a look here. Looks good. And we will right-click, copy, right-click, paste. And these are going to be virtually identical, except for I want to change the tool to a smaller tool just change it up. There's no real reason. I want to make sure I'm getting in there. I'm sure the 3/8 is, but let's get in there with a slightly smaller tool. Let's go select library tool, and we'll end up going with 1/4 inch. All right, filter, and we'll turn the flat off, and we'll say equal to 0.25, green check, 1/4 inch ball end mill, perfect. Speeds and feeds are fine. This will be finish. And we can go now into model geometry and make sure the wall stock and floor stock is 0. This is our finish pass. Now we're getting to cut parameters. Zigzag will be okay. We're going to live with it. It should be one way. Sometimes you get weird gouging if you change a load in the tool. But since the load in the tool is not changing in the workpiece, it's not in contact when a direction change occurs, you should be okay. But you have to see how tight your machine is. The step over we're going to put to 0.003. Okay. Transition smooth is good. Steep shallow, everything should be fine there. Linking parameters should be fine. The arc filter is fine. So we should be good to go. So let's hit green check. And we'll have to regenerate because we copy and pasted it. It won't regenerate on its own. And let's see what happens here. All right, and again, this is the one that takes all the time. So make sure that a lot of times I will increase a step over, get something sort of where I want it, and then go. It just happens to be that this part warrants a very similar semi-finish to finish path. You could use equal scallop, could use scallop for this. That's fine. But I'm using raster just to change it up, and you see it's pretty smooth. All right, there's that little jump there, because again, it's not a lot of material there, like I talked about earlier. So let's run all of these. All right, I am going to save now. Good time to save. And let's verify this. All right, I'm going to let it completely boot up because there's a lot of stuff going on here, especially in that finish path. All right, looks like we're pretty good there. So, let's going to verify. These are not on because I did reboot Mastercam a minute ago. It was starting to act a little doggy in the semi-finish, my last portion of this video. So I wanted to make sure it wouldn't. Sometimes a quick restart of just the software is enough to help. So we'll go there and we'll go to Home, Stop Conditions, Op Change. So we look good there. We'll increase our speed a little bit. Let's hit play. And we'll watch this operation. And again, don't worry about importing the vise for this unless your computer's pretty powerful, because all the geometry, anything you import in does dog it down, and these toolpaths will slow down most computers on their own. So, like I said before, I am assuming that you're able to load in a vise and make sure you can see a fixture crash for these videos, and that's one of the reasons I do these 3D ones last. They're a little demanding on your computers. So the roughing, again, like I said before, the stairs are pretty even. The upstairs, not the upstairs, but the upsteps look good. The more even it is, the faster you'll be able to run when you get to machine tool. You don't want crazy load changes on the cutter. You can see that the bar at the bottom all the time is in finishing, and that's what you want. You want to get the material out of the way and let it finish on its own, because generally when it's finishing, you're pretty safe to walk away. It's not uncommon. We would let the machines finish overnight. We would make sure that parts were roughed. If there were multiple setups, they were roughed throughout the day, and then we make sure 4:30 we would hit go on the finish passes. They would run all night, come in, they'd be finished the next day. Alright, there is the roughing. I'm going to let it finish up there. Again, patience with this is going to help. I usually give it a couple minutes to make sure the little blue circle next to the mouse icon goes away, then hit play and let it go through its semi-finish. It is right now. Looks like it did before, so that's good. Alright, so almost done with the semi-finish. And again, this should be leaving 3/1000ths of material that the finish cutter will finish up. So we should have a 3/1000 amount of material left and a 1/1000 step over to clean up. So that's pretty good. Alright, so there we are there. We'll let this load. And again, this is the one that takes all the time, is the finishing. So let it finish up. And we'll finish it. And now our runtime for this is not bad with the finishing. We could probably increase the finishing feed rate, but again, that depends on material. All right. And let's take a look. All right. And there's our finish paths. Alright, I'm going to pause the video here and come back when this is complete. Alright, here we are. So this is complete. One thing I want to, again, this is just because there's no material there. That is the thickness of the workpiece. If you look at especially the drawing, you'll see that the height of the flat here does come up higher, so that does make sense. That should blend fine. There are a couple ways to fix that. It would be essentially, like I said before, trying to machine all this in one. That does help, and it'll help it get a straighter line here. The other way to minimize this is to change the direction of the toolpath. That would work well too, but this looks worse than it actually is in material. Okay. So don't worry about it for this one when you get stuff there, especially if the flat comes up. I'm not really worried about it for these examples. Now, what I am worried about are these little ends here. Now notice it is coming around and touching a little bit. So if we get out of here, you'll see they flow right over. If we go to the front view and just pick a side here and we use the Analyze toolpath bar, you'll see if you come over there, that's only about the width of the cutter. So it is possible to hit if you are not perfectly the length. So how do we fix this? Okay. What I want to do right now, and this is only going to really affect the finish. For this example, you could do it. You should do it for both the semi-finish and finishing, but we're just going to do it for the finishing here. I'm going to turn this off. Not on. I had everything selected, so we'll turn them all off. Now, we're going to create a surface here and extend it. So what I want to do is I want to go to levels, and I'm going to do a new level. and that level is now active. I want to go to surfaces, all right, and go from solid and just select this area here. Hit end selection. So now we have on levels a surface. So what I want to do now is I'm going to turn the loft off. I'm going to turn the surface on. And we're going to re-establish our geometry for our toolpath in a minute. What I want to do now is go to Extend in Surfaces and select this surface that way, 1/4 of an inch. Select this surface that way, 1/4 of an inch. So you'll see now it literally extended the surface out past what really exists. So we'll hit green check and we'll turn our loft on and you'll see the difference. So now the toolpath is going to curl over here. A 1/4 inch is a lot, you could do less, but now it's going to flow into the toolpath. Okay? So that's one way to fix the little ends and make your toolpath smoother on the actual workpiece. So what we want to do now is, I'm not going to bother renaming that, there's only one surface. What I want to do is go to Toolpaths, and first thing I'm going to do is go to Geometry and go and select the surface. That's good, there's two. We'll hit green check and said before you regenerate, go to Levels, turn off your surface, go to Toolpaths, Geometry, and unselect the actual solid. So now there's only one entity, 0 on the walls and floors. Everything else should be all set. Not a whole lot I think I'm going to change here. Everything looks pretty good. So we'll hit green check. And now we will actually take the time to regenerate this operation, and that'll allow the toolpath to flow and not hit the actual workpiece. So it's just a quick little thing in the surfaces. All I did was essentially take my solid, create a surface that's identical, and then work with it using the surface tools that don't really exist. You could extrude this out straight and it'd probably do the same thing, but it's not going to lead in the same amount. Once this regenerates, you'll see the surface actually goes with it. So if we go to front view and take a look at the surface, you'll see the surface actually definitely follows what's existing. So the tool's going to start way out here where it doesn't matter, get on its track and go, and that'll be a nice smooth tool path. If we take a look here and turn this on, you'll see the arcs are occurring way over here. So now we should not have those little lead-ins in the finish path. Okay, so that's just a little thing in the surfaces, and again, don't panic about the little red here. That does, that's going to happen because there's technically no material there. That wall has already been machined by however we machined the thickness. I think it's 2.5 inches here. So don't worry about that. That'll be a blend. And like I said before, you would have to machine. Well, one way you could do is machine all of this in one. All right. That's not a bad idea. Then you could grab it by the flats and face the other side for the second operation. It's not a bad way to go. Especially if you're worried about that blend line. Okay. Another way to minimize this is to change the direction of the toolpath. You can go this way instead of long ways, and that will minimize it as well. It'll look close. It's not going to fix it, but it does help a little bit. So that's that. Again, don't worry about the red. I know people are going to panic there. Don't worry about it. That's just a flat wall that exists. If you take a look at this and you look at the right view, you'll see right where that red line is, it's pretty much flat. So that is already gone. That is why it's not really contacting there, because it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to be machined. That's why it goes up and over like that. So don't worry about it. That's fine for this. I'm not going to have you go ahead and machine here, all the way around. I'm not worried about it for this example. So let's take a look. I think that's just about it for this module. We roughed, semi-finished, and finished this. We went over a little bit how to convert a solid into a surface and extend the surface so that it flows better. Let's take a look at this and verify, and we will be done. This will take forever like it did last time, so I will pause the video and come back when this is complete. Alright, so this has now been ran. You'll see that there's no more nice crisp edge there. Alright, so that extending the surface got rid of it. That's what we're looking for. Alright, and that's about it for this module. It looks pretty good, and that's about it.